Hi everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we're back again today to talk about the third book in the Gateways saga. We're on now to Robert Greenburger's Doors into Chaos. And this is the TNG iteration of this one. And first off, I had a lot of fun with it. But let's just start right from the cover here. An enigma from the distant past threatens the future of the galaxy. Star Trek The Next Generation Gateways, Book 3 of 7, Doors into Chaos by Robert Greenburger. Gateways concept by John J. Ordover and Robert Greenburger. So, him and John came up with the whole story together, and he was given this TNG one here to do, which is kind of, they say, like the linchpin of the whole thing, maybe. So, from the back cover, we have Star Trek The Next Generation. More than 200,000 years ago, the ancient Iconians created a network of interdimensional gateways, providing instantaneous transportation across unimaginable distances. Once known as the Demons of Air and Darkness, the Iconians mysteriously vanished many millennia ago, never to return, or so it was believed. Gateways, Doors into Chaos. Summoned to an emergency briefing at Starfleet headquarters, Captain Jean-Luc Picard is stunned to discover that the legendary Iconians have returned at last, and are offering to sell the secrets of their advanced technology to the Federation. To prove their sincerity, they have reactivated their long-abandoned gateways, but the results have been strife and chaos throughout the entire Alpha Quadrant. Now Picard and his crew must contend with feuding Klingons and Romulans as the captain seeks to discover the sinister truth behind the Iconians' unexpected rebirth. So, right, a very cool, very interesting idea right from the get-go. What if, just out of nowhere, all these gateways opened up and started up again, and that's what happened. And one of the really fun things that this book does that I really like is that it gives a variety of little side stories, basically, that kind of illustrate that chaos. So throughout the story, you'll just get a little bit of, this is what's happening with this gateway in this one section. Just to give you an example, on Delta Vega, or let's see here, oh yeah, this was a good one. There were 3 Bolian athletes who kind of get sucked through a gateway, end up near a Gerada colony, who are like these insect-like beings, and then during the during the meeting with them, end up accidentally destroying the whole colony, right? And so just they have all these little stories about all these different things that go on in the midst of the main story. And the main story is, well, we won't get into it too much yet, but the main story is basically Picard assembling this kind of fleet, and not just Picard, I should say, but Starfleet putting together this group, this fleet of different races, so that they can confront these Iconians, and then, come to some kind of conclusion or something, so that they can stop all this chaos that's going on. So that's the idea. As you can see from the cover here, you've got some Romulans, some Ferengi, you've got a Klingon, and that last ship could be Deltan, possibly. Or this could be, actually, it could be one of the, maybe to be one of the other ships. The Iconians, as they say. So anyway, very fun book. Again, it tells a story, and it doesn't stick to just kind of one little thing. You're jumping around from ship to ship, from situation to situation. But you always have kind of Picard as like the central theme, kind of driving everything forward. And then in the end, kind of like all the threads, come back together and take it right to the conclusion. Of course, as you know, if you've been following along or know anything about these books, each one of these Gateway books is a cliffhanger. It was done that way on purpose by John and Robert here. And it was kind of funny, actually. They mentioned in the book about books how, in retrospect, it was not a good idea. And people have come to resent the series being because of the caper costing $24 after investing in 5 $6.99 books. Now, I didn't have to pay that much for it. I think I paid 12, but I can see what he means. You've been following the series. You want to see the end of each one, and then at the end they make you buy the big hardcover if you want to get the end. So, um, yeah, that would probably make people mad, especially back in the day when they just wanted to see the end, and you don't want to have to pay $24 for that. So, well, thank goodness for libraries, right? So, now John and Robert, I guess, are comic book writers, mostly. So, one of the things that they, and what comic books do was to get into like crossovers, and of course they did the Invasion series that we talked about before, and then they came up with the idea for this one. So, and when Robert was coming up specifically with the idea for this one, Doors into Chaos, he was inspired, it said, by the Magnificent Seven, an old Western movie, and I think in that movie as well, like they're gathering together this group, this party to confront this situation. So there's a lot of fun little things that you get to see in this book. Picard interacting with a few characters, Garrick and Martok. Of course, at this point in time, the Dominion's been defeated. Worf is ambassador to the Klingon Empire, so he's in the book kind of in that capacity. Rom, in charge of the Ferengi Alliance, is in the book as well. So, not as like a big character, but just in the beginning you get to kind of meet all these different characters. So it's fun that all these different people are drawn in, and even I think characters from other books in the series as well are kind of brought in. So I'm excited to see how that's all going to play out, and how that's going to continue. I know the next one is the Deep Space Nine one, and then I'm assuming the Voyager one after that. But anyway, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. So before we get into just kind of ranting and raving here, I will say it's a fun TNG book. It's not a typical book because of all these little side stories, right? But all of that kind of, like I said, comes together in the end, and you do have a really well done, really well written space battle in the end. You have some different situations. You have Commander or Counselor Troy in command of a ship at one point. You have a new crew to meet, new personalities. So, and even though there's definitely a lot put into the book, it didn't feel like it was too much. Like I felt like it was overwhelming. I didn't take a lot of notes, but that's fine. I didn't have time to take too many notes. I was just enjoying reading the book. We started it on the 31st and just finished today, so 10 days. It's a bit long. We gotta get that back down to like a 7. Let's see where we're at with the last one. 22nd to the 31st. See, that's 9. So yeah, we're definitely slacking off here. We've got to. We should try to get these done in about a week. That's the goal, So anyway, if you don't want to know further about the story, you can check out now, and we'll see you next time. But for everyone else that just wants to hang out and listen, let's talk about Doors into Chaos some more. So, do I have a water? What? The whole thing just spilled on. Okay. I don't have water is the answer. Alright. Doors into Chaos. So, again, very cool book with the side stories, as I said, showing you all of the different doors into chaos, right? That's kind of like the whole point of the book. And if they didn't write those little side stories in there, I think you wouldn't have kind of felt the intensity or the need for them to solve this problem as much, right? Because basically they're able to show, from tiny little things happening, and I'll give you guys some examples here. I did not take any notes, but luckily someone here on the memory beta did a fantastic job, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 side stories that come up in this book. For instance, here we've got one where on Ferenginar, some Orions take advantage of a gateway that is close to to the planet to come in and loot Rom's home. So that was like a short little side story that happened, and they just keep throwing these in there, and some of them are kind of less intense, and then some of them are whole civilizations being wiped out or being hit with a virus or something like that. So they keep peppering those into the story to show exactly just how devastating all of these portals everywhere really is for the whole Alpha Quadrant. So now the story starts out with Picard being called back to headquarters, and he attends this meeting of basically like all the captains, right? So all the captains are they go to Starfleet headquarters, and they go into like this giant holodeck, and I thought this was kind of cool too, where all of the captains and everyone that want to be briefed is brought in via like hologram, so they're all meeting together there, and there you get to meet and also they bring in Montgomery Scott as well, so it's a book full of cameos and little things like that. So right here in the beginning, in that little scene, so Admiral Ross is there, and then Captain Shelby, Mackenzie Calhoun, Major Kira is there as well. So just a very interesting little meeting where basically they explain the extent of the problem and the plan. And the plan is to reach out to all of their neighbors and build a fleet, and then go out to these Iconians to negotiate with them. I don't think I've mentioned that basically what happened is the Iconians turned all these portals on and then offered to sell kind of to the highest bidder, right? So the Federation wants to go out to everybody and say, hold up, let's just wait, we don't need to do that. Let's go out all together in force and just get them to do this the right way. That way not one single person has access to all this power, right? So, and the other thing I'll say about this book right now, too, that I liked, is they never give you a look into the Iconians until the very, very end. So that always remains a mystery as to who and what they really are and what their motives are, throughout the whole 75% of the story, right? So everybody has their own different missions, and Riker is sent away on the E, while Picard gets to ride on the Marco Polo, a much smaller ship, and kind of take care of his part of the mission, which is, let's see, and Counselor Troy also has her own mission as well. She is off to recruit the Gorn, and then Picard is off to kind of recruit the Klingon and go talk to Martok, and everybody else is kind of off doing their own thing, right? The E is off to resolve a dispute that has kind of arisen because of these portals. The Deltans and I didn't write them down. I did write down the Carrions. They are in dispute over this planet that's kind of right between their systems, right? But these portals have opened up really close to it, so now both of them want it. So the E is there to try to, keep things from developing into chaos, basically. The Enterprise is on its way to Kronos. Picard meets up with Martok. You have a lovely little scene there. He agrees to help Picard, so now they've got a couple of Klingon battle cruisers in there. I failed to write down the name of the Klingon general, but he was interesting and very well written as well. They also get the help of the Ferengi Alliance, and the Ferengi send along Damon Bractor. And I thought this was kind of interesting too, because they used a character from a previous episode. He was basically the Daemon who was in the season 2 episode, what was it? Peak Performance, where they were doing like a war game scenario, and he was trying to take over that ship because he thought it must be something valuable. But anyway, this is the Daemon, and he's there to help as well. Counselor Troy's successful in getting the Gorn to come along, and at this point, things are getting out of hand for Riker, so he kind of calls for help, and the whole group kind of goes to that area of space now, helps out the E, and in that point too, they're able to kind of bring along a couple of Deltans and a couple of these Carrions. as they're going along through space. Who do they encounter? Some Romulans. So now they have a Romulan bird of prey as well. So now they've built up this pretty hefty fleet, right? And they are, first off, they're trying to learn as much as they can as they're kind of heading towards the Iconians, but they can't really, they don't know much, There's only been two encounters with these gateways, so everything is still pretty much a mystery there. But now Picard has his fleet, and another very good part about this book is how they show, like, how in command of the fleet he is, too. And that, like, he knows how to handle having these Romulans and these Klingons all on the same fleet, he's got them in the right spots. So they've got everything planned out just perfectly. They approach the Iconians and, of course, hail them. No response. Hail them, no response. Still no response. They just basically, and then they just kind of play chicken with them. They just keep getting closer and closer and closer till finally the Iconians open fire on them. So now you have the start of just a very well written and a fun little space battle here, where Picard, of course, is telling the fleet, we don't want to try to kill anybody. We're trying to attack to incapacitate, so. And the Iconians are all kind of in these weird clusters of fleets, right? And they all seem to be protecting this central core of, like, these three ships. So Picard decides, that's what they need to get to. They need to get to these three ships, right? So, they have this fun little battle. There's all this stuff going on, and I can't and won't get into all of it because it would just be too much. But suffice it to say, action from every end. From the Klingons, from the Romulans, even from the Ferengi. So, and just very well written and well done. And again, Counselor Troi gets her little time to shine too, being the commander of her own ship during this. So, everybody gets to have a little bit of fun. And really, I would say Data and Geordi, they don't get as much of this. Definitely it is Riker, Worf, Counselor Troi. They get the main bunch of it. And then there's so many other side characters and things that it'd be, can't focus too much on any one thing, really. So anyway, they're in a battle. Picard realizes they need to kind of bust through and get through to the three core ships. This is when one of these ships fires out this devastating quantum torpedo that kind of knocks out the Romulan bird of prey, right? And this is when I started to get suspicious, and I was like, hey, wait a second. I think I know who we're dealing with here. The last book of this, the last book, Chainmail, featured this, is that right, or is that the first book? The first book, not Chainmail. Okay, the first book featured this race of people called the Petrol, right? Yeah, okay, because Susan Wright came up with that. So yeah, the Petrol. And as soon as they fired that missile in this book, I'm like, that's probably the Petrol. Because now this whole thing kind of seems like their whole MO, right? And of course, that book, One Small Step, takes place about 100 years prior. Of course, it's TOS era, and this is TNG era. And in the end of that book, one of the Petrol was able to escape through a portal with, like, a particular piece of portal equipment. So now they have this technology, right? So, okay, we don't even know that yet. They get close enough to beam a team aboard, and now you have a little bit of kind of hand-to-hand action, which is fun. You want to throw a little bit of that into your book too, right? So they go hand-to-hand with basically these very strange-looking Iconians. Some of them look like they're partially Klingon, some of them look like they're human, some of them maybe partially Romulan. Riker's feeling very suspicious. He's like, something is definitely not right here. But anyway, they have some fisticuffs on the ship. Worf comes in as well. He's helping out. He's throwing people around. Again, just a fun little kind of segue scene as they kind of make their way from one. Hey, who turned off the lights? they make their way from one information part to another, really. But anyway, he finds the bridge, and they find the captain, and this is when I'm sure now I know who we're dealing with, is these Petrol, and they're all kind of just like very like surprised at even being like this has happened to them. So like they're all kind of like trained to focus on whatever their one specific task is, and when things go wrong, then they really don't know how to like react quickly enough. So everyone's kind of confused there, which is I guess why they're able to go in there and just kind of beat them all up, which is kind of what they did. And basically they take over the ship, right? But the captain of the ship, this I want to call him Dyson, but it wasn't Dyson, it's Doral. Doral, he gets away, right? I didn't mention, but there is another species. There's another person part of this fleet. Her name is Taylene, and her ship was brought from the Delta Quadrant through a portal into the Alpha Quadrant, and she knew of Janeway and Voyager. And when I looked that up, that was an episode, I think from season 3, but where the Voyager crew was like beamed off, and these other aliens were beamed on. So I don't know, I'm gonna look up more about that, but she has a very powerful transporter system. And using that, they're able to track down where this guy is at, right? And then this is when Picard has kind of had enough. He beams the guy directly to the Enterprise, walks him to the conference room, and just kind of has it out with him right then and there. And he just does such a great job of kind of dressing this guy down, too. But when the guy finally comes clean and admits that they are not the Iconians, they're the Petrol, and they have actually been traveling through space for like a generation, basically. They've left in search of the Iconians so they can figure out this technology, because they never really could figure it out. All they did know how to do was to turn all of the portals on. And Picard is like total, like just like facepalm Picard. But they find out that there is a portal on one of these ships, right? So Picard knows what he has to do. And they have a fun little scene in Stellar Cartography too, and I love those kind of scenes where he kind of puzzles out. Okay, so if the Iconians started here, and then they moved here, and they moved here, and they moved here, did they actually start out way back here, and is this where they're at? So he figures out where he needs to go. He has Data program that information into the portal that's there, and he takes some supplies and bravely steps through the portal into the cliffhanger, till the next book. Boy, I definitely missed some stuff there, didn't I? Space battle, Gorns, Romulans, Klingons, holographic meeting, the Ferengi was cool, Taylene from the Delta Quadrant. Boy. Anyway, I don't think I am. Here's the thing. The story itself, even though the book came in at, 300 pages or something here? 293, exactly. Came in at 293. You have to remember you have 15 little side stories as well that kind of take away from the main, the main story. So, and again, even though that was done, even though you had these little bits thrown in there, it still flowed along really well and was just really fun. So, I don't know. If you like Picard, Troy, Worf, Riker, they get a good bit of action in this. But again, what you're getting from this really is this whole variety. This big kind of smorgasbord of characters and stories and ships, but it all is woven together and done very well. So, congratulations, Mr. Greenburger. We're moving on to Demons of Air and Darkness, the Deep Space Nine book, and this is going to be by Keith R.A. D. Candido, and that should be fun. I haven't read a Deep Space Nine book in a little bit, so it's really what I like about this series is it's taken me through all the series and introducing me to new characters and new things as well. So just glad to be reading it. Just glad, always glad to be reading Star Trek books. And I'm really excited to come to the end. What do I do at the end? Here it is. And then to read the ending to all of these books. That's going to be cool too. So, oh, look how this is really nice too. Look at the blue on this hardcover. Ooh. I like how they look. You know, I like how they look. So that is the end of Doors into Chaos. We'll jump into the next book soon and see what we think of that. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you all in the next video. Good night.